What's up, guys? Welcome back to Populist Podcast. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Chesa Boudin. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you, and appreciate you making time to have me on the show.
Absolutely.
He is running for, what's it, district attorney in San Francisco.
That's right, you got it.
And so we brought him on, asked him a few questions, and I'll get it started. So we ask this to everyone who comes on. You want to tell us a little bit about who you are, why you're running, what sets you apart, all that good stuff?
Sure. So, as you said, my name's Chesa Boudin, and we're in a really unique moment in American and San Francisco history. It's the first time in any of our lifetimes when there's a broad national consensus that the criminal justice system is broken. It's not working for anybody, and it needs drastic reforms. It also happens to be the first time in over 100 years in San Francisco history when there's no incumbent district attorney running for reelection. So it's a wide open race. None of the other candidates have ever run for office, nor have I. And none of us currently work in the district attorney's office. So it's a really unique moment. It's a historic opportunity. And I'm running for district attorney because I think we need to seize this moment to reimagine what the justice system can look like. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Um, and to your question about why I'm different than the other candidates. When I was in diapers, I was 14 months old. My parents left me at the babysitter. They never came back. That day, they drove a getaway car in an armed robbery that tragically left three men dead. My parents weren't armed, but they were part of this robbery, and two police officers and a security guard were killed. My mom ended up serving 22 years in prison for her role. My father is still incarcerated today. He may never get out. My earliest memories are visiting my parents in prison, just to give them a hug. Going through steel gates year after year taught me some difficult lessons about how broken our criminal justice system is, not working for victims who have very little to show for the billions of dollars that we spend prosecuting and punishing people, not working for the people we convict of crimes because they're not getting rehabilitated. They get out of prison, and two-thirds of them are back in within a couple of years. And it's certainly not working for communities where crime rates continue, and it's not working for families, people like me who are left behind when crimes are committed. Now, I've been working on trying to fix this broken system since I was in grade school. Through my time at Yale College, at Oxford, and at law school, I continued fighting for criminal justice reform. After law school, I clerked for two federal judges, and then I decided to join the San Francisco Public Defender's Office. And that's a big difference. I'm the only candidate in the race who didn't start their career as a prosecutor, who started their career on the other side, trying to figure out a way to fix this system that we call mass incarceration. And I'm running for district attorney because I think this is, as I said, a unique moment in American history when we can actually end mass incarceration and we can make our communities safer by focusing on the root causes of crime, by giving victims a voice in the process, and really dedicating the resources to healing the harm that crime causes rather than simply punishing the symptoms of a violent society.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on. I want to ask you a question about one of your opponents in this race, Susie Loftus. She's racked up some impressive endorsements from Senators Kamala Harris and Feinstein, as well as Governor Gavin Newsom. Does this established support worry you at all?
Well, look, obviously those are big names, and they're names that Californian voters definitely are going to recognize in the election. I congratulate her on the endorsement she's got. I think what it shows most of all is that she's got the backing of the status quo politicians, and I think that helps with some voters. I think there's a lot of voters who are looking for change, who want reform. And it's really hard to persuade those voters that you're going to be different than the status quo when you've got the entire political machine behind you. I'm really proud to have support from people who are leading the criminal justice reform movement. People like Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, people like Rachel Rollins, the district attorney in Suffolk County, Massachusetts, Sean King, who's the founder of the Real Justice PAC. And here in San Francisco, people on the ground who are doing the day-to-day work of trying to make our community safer. I've been endorsed by two members of the police commission, three or four former police commissioners, as well as a wide array of Democratic clubs and labor groups. The City College Teachers Union have backed me because They know, as I do, that we are all safer when we invest in education rather than incarceration.
All right. So one of your chief career achievements is reducing the role of cash bail and knowing how cash bail effectively is skewed to hurt the lower class more. What would you do as district attorney to level the playing field a bit more?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's worth taking a moment just to explain how the cash bail system works. And very briefly, when someone gets arrested and put in jail, if they're wealthy, they can buy their freedom. They can buy their way out through a money bail system. If they're poor, they stay in jail. And there's a couple real serious problems with that system. One is it undermines public safety because people who are wealthy are sometimes dangerous. And you don't want someone who's really dangerous just to get out of jail because they're wealthy and continue to commit crimes. On the other hand, people who are poor are sometimes not dangerous. And holding them in jail simply because they're too poor to pay is not only discriminatory, but it actually can cause them to lose their jobs, lose their housing, lose custody of their kids. And in that way, it actually also undermines public safety and destabilizes lives. So I started filing lawsuits to try to end this system and level the playing field more than 5 years ago. And we've had a lot of progress, but it's a slow process to do it through impact litigation in the courts. And one of the things I'm committed to doing once I'm elected district attorney is prohibiting anybody in my staff from putting a price tag on freedom. Robin Steinberg, one of my endorsers, who's also the founder of the Bail Project, likes to say freedom should be free. And I think what we mean by that is if someone's dangerous, then we should look at what we can do to protect the public from them. And if that means incarceration, then and there's nothing else we can do other than incarcerate them, then that's what we do. But for everybody else, for everybody who we're safe to release if they're rich, they should be released even if they're poor. And so I'm not going to allow my staff to put a price tag on freedom. We're going to instead focus on risk and public safety.
All right. Well, we've touched on cash bail and the leveling of the playing field, but what else? Like, what steps would you take to abate the really high rates of recidivism?
So I think that's a really important issue. In California, as in so much of the country, about 2/3 of people who get out of state prison will be back in prison within a couple of years. San Francisco County Jail has an even worse rate than that. On average, people who are booked into county jail once will be booked more than 2.2 times in a 3-year period. That's more than a 100% recidivism rate. It's a disgrace. We need to stop having the criminal justice system be a revolving door for people who are drug addicted, mentally ill, and marginalized. It's not good for them, not good for their communities, and it's certainly not good for the victims of the crimes that they commit. I think what we got to do is make sure, first of all, that every single arrest is an opportunity for intervention and to transform lives away from crime. And we do that by focusing on the root causes. So I want to give you an important statistic. In San Francisco, 75% of the people booked into the county jail are drug addicted, mentally ill, or both. We've got to understand that what's motivating people to commit crimes has to be treated, has to be addressed. Otherwise, we know what's going to happen when they get out. The same thing. So the way we punish people, the way we prosecute people, the way we hold people accountable has to involve services and supervision that get at the root causes of their crime. The more we do to stabilize lives, to use arrests as opportunities to triage people, pair them up with services and supports, the more we're going to do to get them off the street and on their feet and break that cycle of recidivism.
All right. So you touched on nonviolent drug offenders earlier. So what would you do for nonviolent offenses, just like nonviolent drug offenders and even sex workers? What would you do as district attorney?
Yeah, really important issues. Thank you for the question. I think, I'm committed to ending mass incarceration. And I think when you look at what does that mean and how do we get there, one thing it means is not criminalizing poverty or crimes of poverty. So, in San Francisco, as in so many jurisdictions, we still see people getting prosecuted for consensual sex work, for camping, for setting up a tent because they've got nowhere to sleep, for simple drug possession when they're addicted to drugs. Those are the kinds of crimes that are not only really problematic from an ethical, moral standpoint to prosecute, but also distract law enforcement resources from more serious crimes. I want to focus resources on violent crimes, on sexual assaults, on armed robberies, on murders. Those are the kinds of crimes that should be getting most of our attention. And right now, police and prosecutors and judges are distracted by nonviolent misdemeanors, by simple drug possession, and other sorts of low-level quality of life crimes. I think we need to address those quality of life issues, but we need to do it through a public health harm reduction approach rather than through trying to criminalize addiction or mental illness.
All right. Well, we'll wrap this up with one last question that we like to ask everybody that comes on. It's not so specific to you, but with 2020, a crowded Democratic field,
Yeah.
is there a candidate for president that stands out to you?
I got to say, I'm excited about a lot of different candidates, and I'll tell you why. I think Bernie Sanders is really exciting. I was proud to vote for him in the primary last time around. I think a lot of what he's doing and the people supporting him are really on the money. I'm really impressed with Elizabeth Warren as well. I think her policy ideas, her intelligence, and her leadership as a candidate have been inspirational. Cory Booker is someone who I know because we went to the same law school. He was a Rhodes Scholar like I was, and I'm really excited to see someone who I have those shared experiences with, and who's so passionate and charismatic in the race. And I had the opportunity to see Julian Castro speak in person. He was a great speaker as well. So I'm excited about the field. I do look forward to it narrowing a little bit. Because we need to focus on beating President Trump, getting him out of the White House, and I'm excited to put my energy, my brain power, my roll up my sleeves and get to work to help whichever candidate emerges from the nomination process take back the White House in 2020.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk with you today. I'm glad we got to get to know you a little bit better. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close this out?
Well, I'm excited. I've got 84 days to go until my election, and I'm so happy that you all made time to have me on the show. People who want to get involved or learn more should check out my website, www.chesaboudin.com. Maybe you can put a link to the website when you post. And
Absolutely.
hope you all are doing well and have a great rest of the day.